Anytime Canada went to war, us gases were there. Even in the War of 1812. If you check the rosters, you'll find a Ken gas there. Yes, when we're called, we go. This is my great-granddad, who was a recruiter for the British Empire in case they went to war. Back in the early days, 1867, when Canada become a country, there wasn't much currency floating around, so people made their own money, and he could make his own money. He sent over 4 boys to the war, and there's my granddad's unit right there. He's in there. 4 boys. One of them was killed. One of them lost a leg, and Granddad, he won the military medal. There's the 3 boys there that come back from the war, and Granddad, like I said, won the military medal. There's his medals there, with a battlefield commission signed by the King. That's the second highest medal you can get in Canada, unless you die. You get the Victoria Cross if you die. And there's Granddad. They printed up quite a few things about him in the paper. He was quite a man. My granddad's sister, Aunt Claire, she made me call her Aunt Claire instead of Grandaunt Claire. She went along to the First World War with her 4 brothers. She was a nurse on the front lines. Here's a picture of her sending my dad off to the Second World War. And yes, Aunt Claire was a nurse on the front lines. She wrote a horrific diary about her experiences, took pictures when she shouldn't have. There she is with her brother, my granddad, on the front lines when he was on leave. They actually wrote a book about her, Susan Mann of McGill University, and explaining, about a lot of the things that went on there and in the First World War from a nurse's point of view. As a matter of fact, there's young Mike there. They did a commemorative plaque down in Halifax, commemorating her service to the country and to man.
The fields of Flanders had been heavily manured for centuries, and when the men fell with open wounds into the soil, the bacteria there would cause terrible infections. Amputation seemed the only solution. Still standing near the town of Ypres are the bunkers that once served as his makeshift field hospital, and it was here, as the battle raged, that John McCrae was about to write the poem which would capture, for all time, the terrible essence of the war in Flanders. There is, in Nova Scotia, handed down through the generations of her family, a remarkable diary, a daily journal kept by a First World War nurse named Claire Gass. On October 30th, 1915, she copied down a 15-line poem written by one of the doctors in her hospital. Claire Gass made a little bit of history that day, for this is the earliest written record of the poem's existence. Of all the words of war ever written, it is these simple, remarkable words which have become the most quoted, the most remembered, and for many, the most moving. Less than 100 words that linger forever over the graves of the long-dead boys, hover in remembrance over their short-lived lives. Inspired by the bombing death of a young officer, the words were captured and shaped by an exhausted Canadian named John McCrae. Words fused together in a foreign land, in a foreign and long ago time, in Flanders fields. For a few francs, you can visit the trenches, left untouched since the end of the war. These are the trenches where we lost a generation. After 17 days, the Second Battle of Ypres was over, and there was little either side had to show for it. No major ground had been lost or gained, no great victory or defeat. It was as if the whole thing had been for nothing. Yet, 100,000 soldiers had died. 2,000 Canadians had been killed in the first 6 days. John McCrae was alive, but the carnage had left its mark.
He was there for 17 days and nights, not taking his shoes off, not taking his clothes off, looking after the dreadfully wounded and so on. And that experience was just devastating to him. And after that, people said he changed. Some nurses one nurse who saw him in Paris around shortly afterwards said just didn't recognize him. He seemed to have aged about 20 years.
John McCrae was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel and with some reluctance settled into a desk job at the new No. 3 General Hospital a few miles behind the lines near the town of Boulogne. The hospital was staffed by nurses and doctors from McGill University. Although they had the best possible training before they left Canada, Nurse Claire Gass, who would later copy his poem in her daily journal, noted that nothing could have prepared them for what they would experience here.
June 1st, 1915. Some of the new patients have dreadful, dreadful wounds. One young boy with his face shot away, both arms gone, and a great many wounds in both legs. Troops go through almost daily, and when we're able, we always wave strenuously at them. Poor lads, they seem so happy and full of life. There's a difference when they come back on the ambulance trains. Then they are silent. And so are we.
The October entry in Claire Gass's diary shows that John McCrae's poem was in circulation among the troops before it was officially published in Punch magazine on the 8th of December 1915. The poem was recited and discussed in the trenches of Flanders and all along the Western Front. It was a tremendous success, but did little to change the ongoing reality, for the war simply trudged on from week to week and now from year to year. By the end of 1917, the war devolved into shift work. Soldiers would be moved to the front on rotation. If they survived, they would be brought out for a short time until it was their turn again. Mail would be delivered, bodies removed, meals served, guns fired. Death had become a way of life. Violence and misery and killing had become a day job. Although not everyone shared the same work ethic.
A lot of British soldiers, particularly British battalions, adopted a kind of live and let live view. When they went into the line, they wouldn't hurt the Germans didn't hurt them, and that's how it kind of worked. But there were those nasty people up the line, Canadians, Australians, Scots, who didn't seem to understand this sensible arrangement, and who would, the bastards, fight, cause trouble, shell, patrol, and make trouble on a piece of line that otherwise had been perfectly peaceful. So when the 32nd Cornwall Light Infantry go back, they find instead of the comfy relationship with the Saxons on the other side is all stirred up and starts bombing and stonking and patrolling them. This isn't fair. And they got to fight back. But the Canadians felt they couldn't go home until the war was over. And the sooner it was over, the better. And that, I think, is what simply explains why some of them were more aggressive than others, and why the Canadians perhaps were more aggressive than other battalions. And it's no discredit to the 32nd Cornwall Light Infantry, because on the whole, the British had lost far more men. They were more likely to be a battalion of men in their 30s and 40s than kids in their teens and 20s. And when you get to, as we both can testify, when you get to that age, your desire to kill or be killed diminishes substantially. War should be fought by really old guys who the world could easily spare. But the trouble is they wouldn't fight.
The call of duty takes other Canadian women overseas. Claire Gass from Nova Scotia is one of 2,000 nursing sisters with the rank of lieutenant. 4 of her brothers also enlist, although she attempts to get her younger brother to wait.
Mother, don't allow Blanchard to enlist. He is far too young. His duty to his country at present is to play the man at home and stick to his lessons. Until the government requires 16 and 17-year-old boys to enlist, it is wrong for them to go, surely.
Despite her pleas, Blanchard Gass joins his sister at the front. Claire Gass can go to war. Nellie McClung can send her son off to fight. But despite their contributions,
there's a picture of Blanchard in 1917 in France. Very young he was, eh? He come over along with 3 other brothers. As a matter of fact, when my grandfather was there on the right with his sister Claire, he was on leave, and instead of going to England on leave, he went and visited his brothers, his 3 brothers, and his sister on the front lines, you know, just to say hi. And he told his sister that he didn't think Blanchard was going to make it. He just, he was just so downtrodden by the war, he just didn't think his brother would make it. Another one of Granddad's brothers lost a leg there.
Nurse Claire Gass treats the survivors. Many would prefer to die.
All are so brave, and yet those who are not badly wounded are so tired of the war. Tired in such a hopeless way. Some terrible cases. Oh, so much the better dead. One young lad with eyes and nose all gone. One blur of mangled flesh. And body whole and sound.
As the war drags on, Claire Gass's patients are treated and returned to the front, if possible. There are not enough new recruits to replace the wounded.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.